Welcome back, folks, to the Mel Wright Show. This is episode 217. I thought I was only going to have one guest, but it's actually worked out great, folks. I've got two guests for you. I've got Jennifer Gligoric and I've got Brian Price of Leafyassets with us. Unfortunately, my normal co-host, Robert, he's bailed out. He's gone off roaming this week, off somewhere, so he's not available. So you've just got me as your host, folks. So, Jennifer, I'm going to let ladies introduce. So can you quickly give us like a 10, 15 seconds intro, Jennifer?
Sure. I am the co-founder and COO of Leafy Legal Services, and we help protect, we are an asset protection legal services company for real estate investors and entrepreneurs, and we help you protect your assets, plan your estates, and have different tax structures so that you can be your own bank and have some tax-free benefits to it. That'll help you out. That's kind of what we do, and that's my passion. I want people to have generational wealth and to think differently about money and protecting things so they don't have to lose them.
So we're going to be, thank you, Jennifer. And Brian, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Sure, absolutely. I am the CEO and co-founder, the other co-founder of Leafy Legal Services. And so, yeah, we have a great passion for helping real estate and entrepreneurs structure their businesses properly to protect their assets.
Oh, it's great. And what we're going to be discussing during the episode, folks, is everything legal. I know it can be a little bit boring, but I'm sure Jennifer and Brian are going to liven it up. I've got a sense of that, folks. But on the other hand, it's rather important, and not having the right legal structures and not knowing some info about things can cause you a lot of pain in the real estate industry. So, Jennifer, let's start off with you. I think, as we were discussing before we went live with the recording, and you agree with this, I think as a new real estate agent, realizing that you're actually running a business, yes, you might be working for a brokerage, but you're self-employed. And if you don't have the right legal setup, you could be exposing yourself, your family, and your family assets to being sued and possibly losing your home and a lot of your family's assets. First of all, would you agree with that? And secondly, what for the single real estate agent starting off maybe in their second year, what do you think is a good way of trying to protect your assets from, let's face it, the very legal kind of suing atmosphere that you find in North America?
Well, okay, so first, let's just talk about the reality of statistics. And I know this is boring, so I'm going to make it super duper quick. So like last year, there was 100 million lawsuits in the US. Now, that was sued for everything. So that means about 25% of all Americans will get sued sometime in their lifetime for whatever. However, if you're a real estate investor, if you own more than one property, or if you're certain types of entrepreneurs, you have a 95% chance of being sued in the next 20 years. So that statistic goes up so exponentially. The question is not if I'll get sued, it's when you'll get sued. And a real estate agent, even if you just sell, you don't own any houses, which is kind of rare. Once you get to doing it, you're going to see the value of having a buy and hold rental property, or maybe doing a flip, you know, to see how it is. But let's say you're brand new. Your face, your name are on all these cards, all these billboards. And if you're in a big company, let's say you're in Remax or, you know, whatever, Home Caldwell or whatever, then you are going to be on billboards. You're going to be out there. And the assumption is that you've got loads of cash. Now, we all know that that is not really how it works. But that is the assumption, and that's all a predatory attorney or some predatory criminal would need. And they do all sorts of crazy stuff. So the first thing you need to do is realize that you're in business. So because a lot of realtors are well, I shouldn't say that. It doesn't matter if you're male or female, but I think it's even more important if you're female, is that you have to approach yourself as a business person now. One of the best ways to position yourself is to have a company, to sign your contracts as your company. You're no longer using your name on the back end because you have a company and you're a business. And it is amazing how that mindset will trigger a different behavior in the people that you come into contact with in a business sense. And this is not just with realtors, it is with graphic designers. Hey, just give us a new logo, Cindy. You know what? You do those all the time. Can we have it for free? Oh, come on. Jane's a realtor. She'll cut her rate for your house. You hear this all the time with people, but if you're like, well, I don't know, I work with this and I can't do this, it changes your mindset a little bit. And then if you have the other structures, onion layered, especially the way we do it, then you are providing layers of protection between you and everything that you own. So you are doing business under this one LLC, but then your actual assets and what you own are in entirely separate structure. And we have arm's length clauses between that. So you accept rents, or you pay people, or you do things in your name. You get a mortgage in your name because you're using your credit. So it's really difficult and expensive to get a mortgage in the name of a trust or the name of an LLC. Most people won't do that. You don't have to get it in your name, but then you immediately need to take that deed and put it into, let's say, a trust. If you do something like that and you have the right setup, you will avoid the due on sale clause. And then it is no longer in your name. So if someone sues you, because we can't stop people from suing. There are sue people everywhere, right? But what we can stop...
It does seem to be America's hobby.
Yeah, it kind of is, right? And desperate times come from desperate measures. So whenever you get these things of, oh, there's going to be a recession. Oh, there's going to be a this. Oh, we don't like the president. Oh, whatever. It causes people to feel desperate, and you'll see lawsuits kind of go up too. So you don't have to worry about that anymore if you're properly protected. If you get a suit, there's nothing for them to get.
Yeah, so what do you got anything to add that to Brian? And the other thing, Brian, I forgot what the term is that you got to make sure, is it called the veil of
corporate
separation? Maybe you could add a little bit about what that's about, Brian.
Sure, absolutely. Is kind of to follow on what Jennifer was talking about is you definitely want to protect yourself. There's different onion layers as we talk about. Mostly what we suggest for people that are in real estate investing is a Series LLC, and kind of gives you that veil of protection from the corporation as well. Because what it does is it has a corporation that houses other corporations that have the different assets that you own in them. And so what that does, it gives you that extra layer of protection of someone that's trying to sue you. So for example, someone's trying to sue you personally if you own a property or something like that. And so what that lawyer is going to do is they're going to bring up everything that you own. And if you had everything in your own name, every property that you own will come up immediately, and they'll say, okay, this is a good person to sue because it's all right there. Versus having like a Series LLC, what they'll find when a lawyer does that is they'll look and they'll see you own this one corporation, and then there's a company that doesn't really own anything. It has these other trusts that are in there, but they don't really know. And they don't know until they can actually come into that corporation and then look at each of the other ones and try to get into each one of them individually.
And they literally got to start spending some money
exactly
find that. And they're probably going to be a little bit deterred by that and go on to the next poor person that they're going to their day.
Exactly.
You have to think about it as, okay, and I hate to bring up this guy, but I'm bringing him up because he's been in the news. Look at someone horrific, right? Like Jeffrey Epstein. Now, if you're a criminal doing criminal things, the government will get you. But yet it's such powerful structures, what we're talking about, that has taken the might of the United States government, St. Thomas, and other places. And they are still piercing the corporate veils that he had and protections in place, wondering, where did this come from? Where did this come from? Because you have to break open trusts. So if you have an anonymous trust that holds a Series LLC or you have a Delaware statutory trust, depending on where your properties are at and where you're at and which one's best for you, then that takes a lot of time and effort to do that. And you have to know the name of it. And so let's say you're a realtor and you're showing property and some guy slams on his brakes and you end up rear-ending him, right? You think that that's not going to affect maybe a rental property you have or something else. Think again. The first thing that guy's going to do is try to pin it on you. You are falling too close behind. Go to especially if you have like your realty tags all over your car and everything else. And the first thing his lawyer is going to do is go to a program like DataTree or another program like that, and then pull up the name. And because you get mortgages in your name, if you're not transferring them over into something that is anonymous, all of that pulls up and he puts liens on all of it. So even if you settle out of court and the police end up saying, okay, it wasn't your fault, no harm, no foul, you still have to pay for the lawyer that had to work to try to protect all of those things. If you had nothing to begin with, it's going to be a lot less of a legal fee, right? Yeah. And most people won't go through that. They'll just settle. So you will settle all of these liens that they have for one little amount, and then they'll take them off. And many people don't even realize they have liens because the lien system in many counties and many states, until they go to close, who's going to pay this lien? And that is actually a thing that a lot of local and county governments are working on right now. I live in Galveston. We had a problem here with a guy who put liens on all these empty lots. And he was able to do it for quite some time. And people went to closing, and rather than lose their buyer, they would pay it because he didn't do it in huge amounts. It was literally this crook's source of income. Yeah. He finally did it to the city of Galveston on a plot of land that they built 5 low-income houses on, that you had to make at least you had to make under $105,000 a year, have at least a 680 credit score. And then you had to fill out an application. Only some people applied. A lot of people applied for that because they were raised up. You didn't need flood insurance. They were very nice. They went to closing. There was a lien. There wasn't a lien when we bought this, the city said. And now the guy's getting in a lot of trouble because now he did it to the city.
Oh, well, he deserves it. We're going to go for our break, folks. I'm actually going to be asking some more questions about liens, actually, when we come back, because it's something that fascinates me, being originally from the UK. We don't have liens. We'll be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. I'm not with my co-host. I feel a bit empty not having Robert to tease, actually. But I'm sure he's rested not putting up with my teasing. My beloved listeners and viewers, you know that I do tease Robert a bit. But there we go. We've been talking about all the nice things in the first part of the show. Bankruptcy, being sued, all the things you look forward to in life. Don't. It's an uplifting episode of this show, listener, but a realistic one. And my 2 guests seem very, very nice people, so they seem up for it. So, like I said in the first half of the show, Jennifer and Brian, I'm originally from the UK. You would never guess, obviously. We don't actually have liens. We don't have this structure of liens. And you were remarking, Jennifer, about a certain case in the first half of the show where somebody put liens on almost a whole city by the sounds of it, very active. What is this business with liens? Because a lot we're aimed at the newer agent, like saying the first, second or third year. What is this structure of liens? And it does seem to cause a lot of problems in the property industry in general, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it's because a lien, and we have things called contractors liens. That's usually how most people understand a lien. And it started out with the home building industry of a contractor, remodeler, and you don't end up paying them. They can, when you get a new kitchen or whatever, they can put something called a lien.
But they don't, but in the UK, see, if you were doing something, if there was something like that, you can get a judgment, but anything like that has to go through the magistrate court system in the UK. Yeah. It's got to be court. But with this lien system in the US, you don't actually have to go through courts, do you?
No,
it you actually, can just go. You just have to file. Really, you just have to file, and if you have a judgment, whether it's a contract judgment or something like that, it actually goes on your house before you even have to prove it's correct. So like a contractor's lien is one way, but if it, like we were talking in the first half of the call about a judgment lien about someone suing you, which is why you don't want your property in your own name, because not only can they put it on your property, but it comes on your personal credit as well. So if you're trying to get double duty, and this is before a judgment even happens, which is pretty amazing how, that can happen. But if you're trying to buy new properties or you're growing, just get a credit card, it can affect your credit even before it's even decided that it's not even a right lawsuit.
So are there no penalties for people like the individual that Jennifer described in the first half that has obviously almost made this situation in a quasi business? It's a kind of business model. Are there no consequences for the individual that are kind of handing out liens left, right and centre with no justification?
It depends on, number one, it depends on where you live and where the laws are on where you live. But depending on how many people have paid out. So, and who is going to sue them back. So, and it's the same thing, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. The sad thing is criminals are going to criminal, and then they're going to do it in such ways that just make it such a pain for the innocent people to fight it, that they're just going to be willing to just do whatever to get rid of it. Yeah. So in a lot of cases that happens, and also to the money. You would need a tremendous more amount of budget and raising people's taxes to try to combat this too. So they are they try in all these different areas, to come up with new laws or new little hurdles that people will have to do. But then they also don't want to penalize people who've been, excuse my language, just screwed over by someone. And so now they're out money. They've had to pay for roofers. They've had to pay for, shingles and everything. So
really, if you're in the real estate industry as an investor or as a real estate agent, you really need to investigate are there any liens on these properties as early as possible before you start spending money on any legal investigation, checking the property over, any of that. You really need and this is probably why you need a good real estate professional if you're buying property as an investment.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And most investors, and if you go on to really good investment forums like Bigger Pockets and places like that, there are more than enough places you can go to that will help you research it, do deed research it, and you just do your due diligence. With anything, you want to do your due diligence.
Hopefully you don't mind me going through this, but I thought it was going to kind of be a legal episode, so I thought we'd go through all the. Now, there's another area that seems to be reared its head in the real estate industry 2019. It's always been there, but it seems to be increasingly a topic. It's not exactly wire fraud, because it's internet fraud, Brian. There seems to be, when it comes to actually buying property in that, there seems to be a lot of concerns around what is called wire fraud. And it seems to be increasingly becoming a bigger problem. Would you agree with that? And you've got any tips or insights to real estate agents, how do they avoid this?
Yeah, I mean, and any way people can find a way to cheat the system, they'll try. I mean, it's always that way. And so, yeah, I mean, when it comes to any kind of transaction based things, I mean, you definitely want to make sure it's all on the up and up. it comes from like a weird bank or something like that, then obviously you want to make sure it's probably going through a real bank.
Do you know, are there any kind of specific areas that seems to regularly happen when you're buying property when it comes to wire fraud? Is there a trend? Are there kind of trends, or are they all kind of individual?
Yes. Like if you need to vet you need to make sure you vet your client. You're allowed, and now this goes to acting like you own a business. You are perfectly allowed as a real estate agent to ask for contact information, to look up social media information on someone. Do your due diligence. Most people would say, well, when can we meet? They only want to meet on Google Hangouts. They reached out to you through Craigslist. They're only wanting to talk on Facebook Messenger, right? Now, I deal with people from everywhere. They say they're in Schenectady, New York, but they want to buy something. One of the first things you should probably do is do what we're doing here, a Zoom call. Go on to Skype and do a video call with them. I really want to talk to you. I want to get to know you better. What kind of property? Ask them about, from everything from their style to this. Try to see if you can get to know them, because people are getting scammed a lot with these wire transfer things, and people are not even from the States. And you can figure that out with smart little questions of, so what's the time over there? Well, obviously, there's going to be a big difference between the lighting in one area, from the UK or this, how they're responding.
Well, I never see daylight. I'm always in this home office.
Well, maybe not you, but then they would say, so how long are you in the States? So where are you living right now? And you know what? If you feel any twinge of weirdness, ask to see their ID. Do a background check on them.
My better half actually has to commute to Reno to work, but I actually work in the home office, but I never leave actually. But there we go. So you're saying really fundamentally, it's really getting to know the people you're doing business with and doing some due diligence. Otherwise, when it comes to the actual transferring of actual money, you might be in for some bad shocks. That's basically what you're saying, Jennifer.
Yeah, it's just communication. If it seems too good to be true, it usually is. If they're not acting normal, there's a reason for it. And getting to know someone better is only going to make you a better realtor. It's only going to make the process easier. It's going to make them feel that you really care about them and getting them a new home or their new investment property or new business. So you don't have to be like chummy best friends, but elevate your customer service game and also to elevate your security game. As a realtor, you put yourself out there at risk, not just from going to view properties alone with someone. Always get a copy of their ID if you're going to go and visit a property. Every single time. Keep yourself safe, people. And so basic little things like that, you can stave off a lot at the pass.
And there's also there's software that actually verify people's identity, where they actually ask you to hold up your ID with you sitting in front of it, and they can do recognition on your face and match it to your ID as well right away, without really having to before you even meet that person as well. So if there's some suspicion around that, then you can use those. They work on smartphones, and you just say, hey, I need you to verify your ID, your who you are, so that I know this is how it's going to go.
Yeah, ladies, he gives you a name at the club, and it's like some really great, cool name. Say, excuse me, get that app up. Let me verify if you are. You say
verify your identity.
I'm not going there, Jennifer. Another area that I thought we could talk about is obviously we have listeners all over, and we're getting very grateful. We're getting a lot of new listeners and viewers to the show every month. But we're both, me and my co-hosts, are based on the West Coast, and obviously there's a lot of out of state. Especially, I'm based in Nevada, northern Nevada, near to Lake Tahoe. So there's a lot of out of state investors that buy second properties in Lake Tahoe, and other properties in northern Nevada. And then on the coast, you've got a lot of foreign investors buying properties. Have you got any kind of insights about if you're dealing with an out-of-state buyer, and especially if it's out of the US, like from the Far East, from China, Hong Kong, or from Europe, buying property in the Bay Area or in Los Angeles? Are there got any insights, any tips or insights about how that affects action?
A lot of times when you're bringing money from the outside, you'll want to get that settled as soon as possible, because now that with like the Patriot Act and things like that, they really want to know where the money's coming from and how it was acquired if it's coming from the outside of the US. So I would make sure, the verification of funds, and at least having a method that they're going to bring them in, is how that's actually going to be done, because there's a lot of bureaucracy happening, especially now, depending on what country it's coming from too.
So it could really extend, so agents got to be aware of this, because it could really extend the actual process of actually buying a property.
Yeah, I know, like China, for example, there's times when it's taken 90 days for them to get the funds through whatever, red tape has to come through in order to buy a house. And so, different countries have, different levels of things you have to go through. So definitely is when it comes to the funds, that they may have the money and it's all valid, which is awesome. It's just that getting it through the system, and that the US wants to know where that's all coming from to make sure it's verified. So just make sure that, knowing that time frame, how it's going to come through, and knowing what that process is definitely going to be worthwhile. And if they can start the process before they even start looking for a house, knowing how serious they are is also a good sign of what's actually going to be like.
And also I just wanted to add this, on the case of foreign investors, like we have an attorney that works with us, and he does offshore trusts, offshore insurance, and he also helps foreign investors invest in real property in the United States. Do not do a foreign investment unless you have an attorney here that is helping you, because there are so many different laws and ways to structure it. And if you're doing it improperly, you might end up screwing over the foreigner. There's like an EB-5 program, and some of those are actually not good at all for that foreign investor because of their situation. There are other programs that will be very good for them. So if you have a legitimate foreign investor, and they are going to invest not just in one, but possibly many properties, you're going to want to have an attorney who is going to look over the unique situation, get them vetted, and then find out the best possible advantages and structures that can be offered for them. And then you will have a foreign investor for life, and it can make you a lot of money.
Exactly.
If you just wing it, not so much.
Yeah. I thought I would bring this up because I thought it would be an area that would be of interest to you as well, because America and also the UK, I'm not sure about other European countries, but UK and America were one of the few places in the world where a foreign individual using a limited liability company can actually still buy property. There's a lot of countries that have regulations where you actually, as a foreign individual, you're not allowed to buy property in that country, or you've got to buy it with a partner, a native that's actual has domicile in that country. You're not actually allowed to buy property totally out. There's a lot, I know Malaysia and a lot of countries in the Far East have these rules. Yeah. But that's why a lot of people look at America and still the UK, because when it comes to actually buying property, it's a pretty free setup, isn't it?
Yeah, yes. Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that. Our attorney told us once, he goes, it may surprise you, but America is the tax haven for the rest of the world. As far as in real estate is the way for them to do it. Americans have to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Well, we're gonna end the podcast part of the show. I think I've done a reasonable job, listeners and viewers, without my beloved co-host. Jennifer and Brian have been up for it. So, Jennifer, how can people find out more about what you and Brian are up to and about your company?
All you have to do is go to Leafy, Leafy, legal, legal services.com, leafylegalservices.com, and you can reach us. You can get a free ebook that tells you a lot more in depth about what we do, and it's not boring, it's fun. At least I think so. And or just give us a call. We have a free discovery call for 15 minutes. I'm happy to talk to anyone.
Oh, I think both of you come across great. I know, listeners and viewers, we've touched a few of the more unpleasant aspects of doing business in the real estate industry, but on the other hand, it's really necessary. I think both my guests have given some great insights. I've asked them a broad number of questions. They seem very knowledgeable. So if you're looking for advice, I suggest that you contact them and cover any area that you might have concerns or have a client with. I'm sure they're there to help. We're going to have some bonus content after the podcast, which you can go to the Melwright website and view, or the Melwright YouTube channel. That would be the whole interview plus the bonus content. I tend to publish on the Melwright YouTube channel the first. So if you're wanting to listen to the latest episode of Melwright, and I'm sure you are, that's the platform to go to. We'll see you next week, hopefully with my co-host. You must turn up. It's going to be an internal discussion next week. And we'll see you soon next week, folks. See you later. Bye.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Right. Well, really, I thought we covered something. So, are there any areas that you would like to cover, Jennifer, in our bonus content that you think that would be useful to our audience?
Well, I guess we could always talk about the Series LLC more, since that's our bread and butter, but also the end of the year planning. Now's the time if you want to get your tax structures in place and you want to be more.
Oh, we're on to taxes now, even better.
Oh gosh, you're right. Yeah, you know what? That's too much. Maybe the Series LLC will stay in Dean. Yeah. Sorry.
All the black flags.
That was just English humor. I'm sorry. I
feel bad though. I don't want it to just, I know that it's just like doom and gloom, womp womp, right? Taxes.
Well, the thing is, the more prepared you are, the less issues you have. That's the biggest thing.
I've got to be honest with you. I'm sorry to interrupt, Brian, but actually, Jennifer, don't feel. I think we actually, it was a really good show. Actually, for the bonus next 5 to 10 minutes. But I think it's really, really important to think of these things beforehand, because it's going to save you a lot of pain and aggro, and especially around being sued around investment properties or just doing your business. And I know a lot of agents just do not think of this whole area. They only think of it when the first time they've been sued, and then it's a bit too late then.
It's too late once you've been sued, because then it's all up for grabs. And it's weird. People, it's kind of like, when you think about anything negative, there is this thing like, well, I don't want to think about it or do anything because then it might happen. And I just want to say, no, that's not how it works. The people who actually think about it and do something about it, those are the people it tends to not happen to, amazingly enough. It's the people who don't think about it and are just like, womp, womp, walking around. I'm fine, super person, that gets something weird.
Yeah, we've actually had clients who, in the process of speaking to us, actually had a lawsuit. And we had one person who was a 747 pilot, and they had like 7 properties, and they were talking to one of our advisors, and it was like on a Tuesday, and he was going on a flight, and he couldn't meet till later that week with his wife. And they ended up meeting on Friday after he went on these long flights. He does international flights. And his wife was on there, and apparently between Tuesday and Friday, someone had gotten hurt on their property and filed a lawsuit against one of their properties. And so it was just within a week of just discussing with us, and apparently his wife was getting on this pilot to to get some sort of structuring in place. And so he didn't. And so apparently kept going because he was so busy. And advisor says, Zoom works across the world. You just need you just need to have internet connection, and most hotels have it.
Poor guy. And, he's never going to live that down.
Yeah,
that's going to be one of those things.
They were able to take the other 6 and put them in proper structuring in a Series LLC structure, so those would be safe. But the one that has the lawsuit, unfortunately, they couldn't do anything with, and that person had already filed a lawsuit against that property. So as much as you think it couldn't happen to you, and life is busy and life takes, is everywhere, and a lot of times you just don't think about it, and you're busy trying to grow your business and whatever you're into. It can happen anytime, and the last thing you want to do is being stuck in a place where there is no alternative for you. You're basically, a lawsuit is filed against you. It ruins your credit, it ruins your reputation, and you're stuck. And so now you have to go through all that process. You got to get a lawyer, which you're never going to see that money back. I mean, it's just money out the door. And so
I've got a last question. You mentioned Baltimore and a few times to set up one of these structures. Now, obviously, I'm based in Nevada.
No,
Nevada's got a Delaware. Sorry, I apologise. Delaware. My American geography sometimes is a little bit strange. But obviously, obviously, I'm based in Nevada. Nevada's got a similar. Why do you actually still are attracted to that particular state and domain to set up some of these structures?
Well, actually, we prefer 2 different types of structures. We prefer the Texas Series LLC under a Texas Anonymous Land Trust. That is a very powerful structure. Texas is very friendly. There's no annual state tax. We do all that we can here in Texas to attract new businesses. So it's very attractive to do that with. However, there are certain states, California, Delaware, and Massachusetts, where that structure is not going to be as good of a legal remedy because of certain laws or franchise taxes they have in place. So for those states, we prefer the Delaware statutory trust. And so when someone calls us, we just find out, where do you own your property, what types of property. Multifamily is going to be a little bit different than flips or single family homes. And we have incredible real estate advisors, and they go over, everything with them to make sure that they're not paying, for a structure that they don't need. Number one, that's ridiculous. But what they need just to get them protected so they can move forward. And then we try to get them the education on it so that they know how it's working for them. You don't have to be an expert on this. We know it's complicated. That's our job. But we have things in place where you can call us. We have a whole community. We're going to be building out a membership site because we want to support real estate investors and entrepreneurs as much as we can.
Oh, fantastic answer. Jennifer, Brian, you've been great guests. I've actually enjoyed the conversation, actually. You put up with my humour very graciously. I thank you for coming on the show. Like I say, I think they've proven that they know what they're talking about, listeners and viewers. So if you need some advice, go over and speak to them. We're going to end the show now. Like I say, we'll be back next week with my co-host, Robert Newman. And we'll see you soon, folks. Bye.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.